We're right, you're wrong. Welcome to the Leave Judgment at the Door. Today, we will relive and examine our actions of ourselves and others to hopefully learn a thing or two.
And you'd think things couldn't get any worse is the title of our show today. On this episode, we will discuss the podcast Squirrel Cop, hosted by Ira Glass. We're your hosts, Grant Anderson,
Ethan Eckert,
and Andrew Seibel.
And we'll also be comparing this podcast to our own experiences. So the podcast Squirrel Cop is a podcast telling the story of a young cop who decides to take on, in his ambitions, tries to take on a squirrel and help the community by removing a squirrel from an attic. But as you find out through the podcast, things don't go exactly as planned.
Yeah, gets kind of lured in by him having a high ego, by him just coming out of the academy. So he thinks he's kind of better and thinks he can solve this by himself.
So this cop and his partner go into this rich couple's house. They're going to have a romantic night, but this romantic night...
The couple is, not the cop.
Yeah, couple's romantic night was soon interrupted by scratching noises coming from the ceiling. Soon to find out that scratching noises was coming from a squirrel scampering around in the attic, knocking over assorted random objects. So the cops were called to come take care of the situation. So they were welcomed into the house. They pulled down the attic and climbed up the attic to find out that the squirrel was right there.
Yeah.
Right in the cop's face.
Yeah, the squirrel kind of jump scares the cop, and the cop ends up falling down the ladder and falling on his own partner. And it's quite a mess. The squirrel jumps down, runs around, ends up going downstairs to the living room.
Then in the living room, there's a nice couch and a fireplace, open fireplace, very romantic, got pillows, blankets, got all this kind of things going on. And being a couch, there's room underneath, so the squirrel finds shelter under there and hides. Now the cops think to themselves, how are we going to get the squirrel out from underneath? So they try swishing it out, but that's no luck since the squirrel can escape out of anywhere. So they push the couch against the wall and find out that once they swish out the squirrel, that the squirrel thinks it should go in the fireplace. And
roasty, toasty barbecue.
So the squirrel is on fire and is all burnt and thinks it's a great idea to go back underneath the couch, setting it on fire.
Yeah.
So by the end of the night, you have these two cops that probably hurt pretty bad because, one of them fell on top of the other one. In this nice, in this fairly well-off couple's house, there's fire, detectors going off because stuff is on fire. The couch is ruined. All this stuff is going on. And I'm guessing that the couple that called the cops weren't exactly happy.
They're probably better off if they didn't come at all.
Wasn't there a part in there too, though, where when the cop got scared by the squirrel, where he dropped his flashlight?
Or he dropped the flashlight, then fell down the attic.
Yeah,
but didn't he break someone's nose?
Yeah, the flashlight dropped and broke the
homeowner's.
Yeah,
the homeowner's nose.
Yeah.
And so the wife is going crazy, and the guy is ticked. He's not happy.
Blood's going everywhere.
So there's blood, fire, rodents, broken bones. This sounds like a great show.
I don't think they actually got the squirrel.
I think they opened the door or something and it ran out or something,
wasn't
it?
The squirrel escaped.
I thought doesn't it die? Because it was on fire. It didn't.
Yeah, but it was just its tail.
It was just charred. I don't think it actually got hurt.
I thought it died.
I don't think it really told us.
Well, this shows that the podcast ending was kind of unclear.
Yeah.
Because they didn't really discuss.
They didn't really cop the squirrel.
Yeah.
The squirrel copped to them.
Yeah. The squirrel kind of got the better of them.
Yeah, they definitely left their judgment as they expected they could easily take down this squirrel and corner it in the attic because it would be all meek and scared, but it definitely bested those two cops.
Yeah, they should have just left it to the rodent people that they have in their
Exterminator.
town.
Yeah, that's what's really kind of interesting about it is they talk about right away in the podcast how this young cop or his partner, who's a little bit older, tells the young guy, he's like, this really isn't our deal. This isn't what we do, and we'll get animal control out here. But the younger cop, he's confident, he knows what he's doing, and so he decides that he's gonna try help. And as we can see, it definitely backfires.
Well, I think it was also, he said that the wife was good looking, and he thought that kind of factored it into it.
Oh yeah.
So
gotta show off for the ladies, you know. Even though she's kind of married, but that's besides the point. Gotta be a man, Take out a
he kind of proved it. First he lit the squirrel on fire.
Yeah.
And then so he proved his male dominance over the squirrel because the squirrel was just so
on fire.
Yeah.
And then he broke the other guy's nose. So really, and he fell on top of the other guy. So really, the young cop really was a dominant male in this one.
Just really trying to show off.
No, that's not how it works.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of things that you can learn from this, whether it's
don't have a squirrel get into your house. That's probably one of the best things.
Or don't overthink your abilities.
Yeah, overconfidence will get you hurt.
Yeah.
And it got me hurt when I thought I could outrace our cousin's Honda Pilots using an electric one-wheel board electric device.
Hey, don't go dissing the Honda Pilots though. My mom got one of those, and that thing boogies for sure.
Yeah, it boogies a little too fast for me. The one wheel is a pretty simple machine. If you respect it, it respects you. If you don't respect it, it doesn't respect you either. So we were hanging out at our grandparents' backyard, and our cousins were thinking it's time to go. And I had my one wheel also out, just riding around. And so my cousins I think it might have been my idea. Of course it's my idea. And so I get up next to them and we race. They drive off and I'm left to my own devices and fall off and break my collarbone.
That kind of reminds me of when I'm working at the grocery store, and when I first started, some of the people working there, they like to have like races in the mop buckets and stuff. So they would grab the mop buckets and they would sit in it, and then they would be like pushed around, and then they would use the mops as like jousting rods, and they would like joust at each other or with like a broom, and people are just in the back just doing that, and then somebody like walks into the back and they're like, oh crap, I didn't mean to have this customer just see us jousting in the back, because normally that's something you don't want to show to the customers.
Usually not.
Yeah, there's some weird stuff that goes on.
Have you learned anything from that experience, Ethan?
Yeah, don't hit very hard, or like when you're doing it, don't joust it or like stab it. Do more of a swinging action that leaves less damage. It's less painful.
As anyone who probably knows me somewhat, I live on a farm and I try to do my best to help out on the farm. But one of the things, about that is, when you've been working at the same place your entire life, you see people who can do a lot more than you, and you always want to aspire to do more. Well, one of the big things was when I got my license, that was a really big turnaround. I could do a lot more. And I remember the summer after I got my license, I was so happy because my dad let me go deliver seed to a customer with a seed tender. Now, a seed tender is a trailer that just goes behind your pickup that can fit quite a bit of seed. We're talking like 16,000 pounds or so of seed. So quite a bit of weight for one pickup. And so my dad sent me to deliver seed to this guy, but my dad didn't know where he lived. And so I was like, well, how do I get there? He's like, here's this number, so you can call. So I take off, I go north a couple miles of our house because I knew that's the general direction they lived in. And I called him, and he was like, oh, well, you got to go out to the highway. And I'm like, well, this seems like kind of a roundabout way, but I mean, I'm just gonna follow his directions. So I go out to the highway, and then I go up, and I follow in all these directions, and I'm like, okay, I think I found your farm. And I call him, and he's like, yeah, no, that's not my farm. He's like, I don't own a blue conveyor, because that was what I used as my distinguishing characteristic. And then he gives me directions again, and I get lost one more time, but eventually I get there. And when I get there, I realized that where I had called him the first time was a mile away from his yard. But I had driven literally about 20 miles. So I'd driven 20 miles unnecessarily. And so then I finally pull in there, I get into the yard or whatever, and I'm trying to run the tender. I'm not very good at it, but I'm figuring it out. And this he's not old, but he's a little bit older. So I'm like trying to do like all of the lifting and climb all the stairs so that he doesn't have to. And the one thing I do is I'm reaching up onto the tender. There's a big spout that goes out the front because I'm trying to put the spout on the conveyor. And as I reach up to the bumper, I'm fairly short, and so that's a pretty big stretch. And I like kind of jump up, but I don't quite get myself enough momentum to grab the conveyor on top to pull myself up. And so I kind of fall back, and I split my pants wide open. I don't mean like a couple inches, like the entire thing. So I'm running around. This guy's like, oh, so this first he can't follow directions.
How old were you?
This is, I think, either last summer or the summer before. So it's 14, 15, somewhere there. And so then, there's this kid who doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't know how to run this tender. I think I had to call my dad a couple times because I couldn't figure out how to get the stupid scale to work. And then I split my pants wide open, and I'm running around in a daze. And I think this guy was like, yeah, next time just send your dad because this kid doesn't know what he's doing. But I kind of understand what the cop was going through because, well, you want to like prove that you can do it, and you've been waiting to do stuff for a long time. So when you get the chance,
you jump on.
You're like, oh, I can do this. You're overconfident. Well, I'm probably gonna have to do way harder stuff later, so I can handle this. Like even if maybe you can't, or maybe you just like in my case, I could handle it. I just had to slow down and use my brain a little more. Yeah. But yeah, that was pretty fun running around the tender trying to deliver seed with a
split pants
wide open.
Yeah, jeez.
And yeah, with my experience, just overconfidence it kills you.
Yeah.
I've gotten really hurt doing that. Not just with the one wheel, but other experiences as well.
Stupidity is something else that also brings into a lot of the weird stories or weird accidents that happen because you're not thinking that you're going to get hurt from it. You're young, you think you're invincible and stuff like that, so you're willing to do a lot of these stuff, but
once you grow up, you realize that isn't the case.
Yeah.
You try to be like the cops in the show, but you soon realize you're going to get played by a lot of squirrels in your life.
Yeah. Sometimes those pants seams just let you down.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for listening. This has been Leave Judgment at the Door. We're your hosts, Grant,
Andrew,
Ethan,
and today we examine the crazy story of Squirrel Cop. So tune in next week when we will be looking into how Ben and Jerry's ice cream was started and how each of us can relate personally to that. Take care and have a good rest of your day. This recording has been brought to you by Freedom Egg, Cybel Farms, and RA Customs. Please do not contact them, however, as this is not a real sponsorship. Thank you for listening.